Happy day, friends. It's me, Happy Murphy, and I am the Happy Humanist. I love to talk about happiness, humans, and happy humans. If you too are interested in having more happy humans on this planet, then come on in. You've come to the right place. Today marks the inaugural Happy Chats, a series that I am very excited to launch. And today, my first Happy Chat is with Godless Engineer, a gentleman who encouraged me to stand up and use my voice. Because though I am an actor and I am used to standing up and using my voice, I am not used to saying words that, came from my own brain. I'm used to standing there in clothes someone else put me in lights someone shone on me, and reading words that someone else wrote. So standing up and using my voice is a wholly new experience for me. And I gotta tell you, I'm loving it. Watching my Happy Chat back was a little bit painful, of course, as happens when we watch ourselves. I learned a lot, mostly that I need to stay a little more focused because, my gosh, the first 10 minutes, I could not remember a thing, and it was so much fun. It was great to have butterflies in my stomach. It was great to be scared again. It was great to be taking the first step on a journey that I hope will last for a long time. It was just wonderful. So with that, I encourage you to lean in and engage with Happy Chats. John, thank you so much for being here and for doing this. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you being giving of your time and being willing to help somebody out who wants to stand up and use their voice. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me on your channel here. I really appreciate, people reaching out, wanting to have either discussions or interviews, either one. I just like hanging out with people that like to watch my stuff. And I love promoting and engaging with the community in general. So
Awesome.
yeah, no, I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. As am I. I wanted to talk to you first, right? This is my first interview. You say stand up and use your voice, right? And when I was thinking about my channel and the message that I wanted to send, I was reminded of Jim Carrey's quote, "The greatest currency in life is the effect you have on other people." Mm-hmm. And I thought, Godless Engineer, he had an effect on me. He makes that call to stand up and use your voice. And even though I am a theater actor and I'm used to being on stage and playing characters and using my voice, as it were, using my voice in a public forum to say lines and words that are my own, is something new to me, right? I'm used to saying words that someone else wrote. I'm not used to speaking my mind. I'm not used to writing words and then saying them. I write, theater scripts, so I write words for other people to say. So this is all very new to me. Yeah, and I just want to say I appreciate again, you're being here for that, to be a part of this inaugural video.
I'm really glad that you thought of me first. I'm glad that I had such a positive effect on you. I mean, that's really the goal of my channel, is to have a positive effect in the community at large. So I'm really glad to know that I'm at least accomplishing that in some kind of way.
Yeah, you are, my friend. So when I went back and I was looking at some of your videos, I saw the very first video that you posted. Now, it may not be the very first video you made, but it was the oldest video I could find. But I wonder, what was the inciting incident for you, right? In theater, we talk about the inciting incidents in a script, what spurs the action on. So what is that for you that made you say, you know what? Nope, that's it. I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna use my voice.
Well, at the time, I had grown my Facebook page to be pretty large, and I remember specifically what really got me into making videos, and that was somebody challenging me, like, "Oh, it's easy behind a Facebook page, anonymously posting all of this stuff. You're not actually putting yourself out there and doing it." And so I'm just kind of like, I mean, it doesn't bother me to put myself out there, and so I just kind of I was like, I'm going to start making videos. And so I just so happened to come across a video. I think it was probably because Hemant Mehta or another blogger wrote about it. But I found the video and I was just like, you know what, I'll just go ahead and I'll just start. And so I just kind of jumped headfirst into it, which, I mean, anybody that goes back and looks at my original videos, you'll see I feel like it's a completely different person, because at the time, like I came in like a wrecking ball almost, because I was cursing, I was dropping F-bombs just all over the place. I don't know, I feel like some of it's probably nearly unwatchable now, but the thing that really kind of got me wanting to do it was, I guess, being challenged, in
Sure.
putting myself out there, having my, I guess, my image out there with my words behind it, and doing that, it kind of felt like a next step in whatever activism I was trying to accomplish.
What's your favorite video? What's your favorite, or a few videos that you've done?
My favorite videos are always the ones where I kind of throw a bit more creativity behind them rather than just, I guess, responding to the video. Most notably the ones where I involve Brocephus, because I feel like that not only allows me to kind of be creative with that character, but also I've found myself in situations where I'm like, hey, it'd be really cool if I did this. And that's where, like, I've got a couple videos where it's like me, like Godless Engineer, having a conversation with Brocephus, and it's just kind of switching back and forth between the two, and I'm having to play both parts. And it's just, it feels like it's really flexing my creativity, and the content of them. I feel like those are very important topics to cover, but it's kind of one of those situations where it's interesting for me to do, and I'm really interested in the topics, but it's not so much everybody else likes it.
Yeah.
So I mean, those generally do the worst, but they're also the ones that I have that are my favorites to do.
Yeah. I think I'll touch on this later. But yeah, that creation aspect, right? When we're creating something wholly original, that comes from from our brain. I think of that as one of our superpowers, right? We have the ability to take things that are subjective, that are right in here, and make them objective, for other people to see, to potentially change the world, right? Yeah, I think that's great that those are the videos that you enjoy making the most. I think that's logical, right? When we're creating, I think that's when people tend to be the happiest in life, right? Do you enjoy the journey, or do you tend to enjoy the destination?
Generally it's the journey, I guess, that I really enjoy, because I kind of know what the destination is, and I get that sense of accomplishment when I reach whatever destination I'm going for. But it's really the journey, I think, that provides you with the most satisfaction, I guess, because I mean, it could take a long time for you to get to wherever you want to go,
Right.
and it's everything that happens up until you get to your destination that kind of, I get, not maybe not defines you, but it kind of adds to your life experience, and just your overall well-being, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I tend to think that too many people focus on the destination, and that once I get there, once I have this thing, this idea, this object, often a material thing, that suddenly I'll be happy. I'll find happiness. All the things will come together, and I'll be magically happy. But like you said, that can be a very long process. People
Hmm.
could spend years and years and years and years. So does that mean that you're now spending years and years and years not enjoying the process, when you could
Hmm.
potentially just drop dead at any moment, get hit by a bus, for unforeseen accident? Who knows? You never know, right? As Hitchens said, you
Right.
never know when we're going to be asked to leave the party. So we might as well enjoy the time while we're here, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So you had mentioned before that the videos that are your favorite videos are the ones that are the most creative, but they also have the least amount of views. So would those be the videos that you think deserve more views as well?
Um, well, I mean, I guess so, maybe a little bit. I kind of wish the videos where I kind of tackle the more specific historical claims would actually do a lot better. specifically my Mythicist videos,
Yeah,
because it seems to me like the videos that do the best are the ones that really play into the current like narrative that's being
sure,
spun, and
sure.
not anything that's really critical of that narrative. And so I feel like those videos that sort of challenge the current narrative surrounding like the history of the New Testament and the history of Jesus in general, I wish those would get a little bit more views, because I feel like a lot of people write them off as like crazy, kooky, conspiracy theory kind of thing. But in reality, there's not much difference between like my mythicist position and what people generally think about Jesus, as far as like an atheist sort of view of Jesus or a more skeptical view of Jesus.
Mhm.
There's not much difference, other than we have differing opinions on things. And I feel like a lot of people just sort of write it off as crazy kooky, when they should really kind of, I guess, really take it in and try to critically think about like the evidence they think they have, like for Jesus.
Yeah,
That's what I wish would probably get more views.
I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. Um, you are definitely the one who even introduced me to the mythicist position. I, I've never even considered the fact that Jesus wasn't an actual like one single person. Perhaps he was many people. I had considered the fact that the whole thing is just myth. Yeah,
Mhm.
we call. For me, the moment was in like sixth grade when I realized that we were calling the Romans and the Greeks myth, but we were
Mhm.
calling our stuff religion. Like,
Yeah.
wait, no, 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 it's all the same, man. Come on. Really? Really? Yeah,
Yeah.
really. Who knew? Yeah. So for me, that was the moment when I realized it was all myth. What was that moment for you that you even, even considered this? Because like I say, you're the one who made me consider this, that this was even an option. Like, oh, wait, okay. So maybe it's not just myth. Maybe there actually was a person that inspired this myth, right? Which I
Mhm.
kind of always thought, yeah, there was a person that maybe inspired this myth. But beyond the magic that's in the myth, no. So what happened? Yeah, can you talk to us about that? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the early days of my activism, I guess I was mainly focused on Facebook, and so I interacted with a lot of people on there in different groups, and so it got to the point where I was discussing the history of like the New Testament, and I found myself thinking like, well, surely we have evidence to say that Jesus existed in history. I just need to find what that evidence is so that I can shut people up that say that Jesus didn't exist in history, right? I was definitely on the side of what the current consensus is, and because I didn't know any better, so I'm like, well, let me get this evidence so that I can just recite this to people or tell people this, like, well, this is the reason why. And so what I found was I started looking into it, and I didn't find any solid evidence for Jesus, but I found a lot of people questioning whether or not he was a real person. And I found a lot of books from some crazy smart people like David Fitzgerald, Richard Carrier, um, Randall Helms, all these people were, pointing out how copied the New Testament was, and how there's very little evidence to actually suggest that Jesus was a real person. And so I kind of followed that rabbit hole a little ways, and I just got fully involved in trying to figure it out. And the problem was that every time I went looking for evidence, I found that they always had the same pieces of evidence, which were not evidence that he existed. And so I'm continuing, I guess I'm continuing my journey right now on trying to find good solid evidence and arguments that suggest that Jesus exists in history, because a lot of people think that mythicists have this agenda that we don't want Jesus to exist in history, because somehow if he existed in history, that means something about Christianity. I'm not sure, but I mean, I really have no issues if Jesus did exist in history, because the one that's portrayed by the Gospels and the New Testament, I mean, that one doesn't exist, obviously. So it really doesn't matter to me if there was a real person there or not. But I found myself comparing it to like the belief in God, because I'm not going to sit there and just believe God exists just because it's the easiest answer. And it's like, oh, well, something has to exist, kind of thing. I found myself realizing that the arguments and the reasons why people believe that Jesus was a historical figure mimic like people that believe that a God exists, whether that's an ambiguous kind of God or a very specific definition. They have these bad arguments to assume that this God exists, and so I just applied the same kind of and quality of skepticism to the question of Jesus that I do with God existing, and I came away just being not very convinced that Jesus existed.
Sure.
I don't. Sorry, that was probably more of an involved answer than
it's
you
great.
expected.
No, that's great. It's wonderful. Exactly what I'm looking for. Thank you. I immediately went out and I got the Richard Carrier on the historicity of Jesus. As I got the Audible. I love audiobooks. Listen to them all the time. And oh man, I had to go back and listen to that one again. And then I'm like, I might have to go get this thing in print, because it's good.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm not religious, right? At all. I've never been. And so I've never spent a lot of time thinking about religion until I became an adult, and I realized that religion was destroying the world, right? And a lot of the problems of this world are directly related to religion. And I love history. I followed in undergrad. I have my undergraduate degrees in psychology, but I followed this history professor around. She was amazing. She escaped Nazi Germany, like through Austria or Yugoslavia at the time, or if that was a country then, don't know. Told us the stories of her going through the forest in her white furs, and the people all yelling at her for wearing white furs while they're trying to escape the Nazis. But I followed this woman everywhere, specifically to a historiography class, which was the learning how you do history, right? Which was eye-opening. And I was like, oh man, everyone should take this class. I don't know why this is supposed to be reserved for history majors. This is fantastic. And so I learned about all the different primary sources and all, secondary, tertiary, all the different things. And in psychology, I had learned about all the different research methods and fallacies and biases and things to look out for. And yet, perhaps because I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about Jesus, but I just never considered that the only evidence was the Bible. That's kind of it, and that does not evidence make. So I appreciate you taking on this mythicist position and going forth and spreading that word, because it's fascinating, and I think it does need an academic bent. It needs people to look at it in a serious manner and look at the evidence. Isn't that so apropos for the times right now, huh? Look at what the evidence tells us.
Yeah, a lot of people want to disregard it just because there's been a lot of crank ideas in the past, but I've always had a pretty good way of sussing out the more ridiculous ideas from the better ideas. I mean, even when I was in private Catholic school, I was able to suss out like the good shit from the bad shit. Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss on here. I can suss out the good stuff from the bad stuff.
18 subscribers right now. We're fine.
And so like when I was looking into like the mythicist position, I found a lot of crank things, but keeping in mind like historiography specifically, and how you're supposed to do history and what makes good evidence, keeping those fundamentals in mind, I think really helped me in figuring out who has the best evidence for whichever position.
Yeah. So you let slip Catholic?
Yeah.
I was going to ask where you got all of your religious knowledge from, if it was just, from religious school, if you had if you're the son of a preacher man, if you went and studied to become a minister at some point, who knows?
Right.
Or if it's just all self-taught, as we can all do nowadays, because the internet has all of human knowledge available, my friends.
Yeah. Well, no, see, I was actually a really bad Christian, I guess, because I would go in and out of deep faith, but it's not like I would read the Bible or I would really, do anything on my own. I would go to Bible studies, where honestly, I don't remember anything that was taught in the Bible
Sure.
studies, but, I pretty much was a Christian, but I didn't exactly, fully involve myself, I guess, as a lot of people do in learning the Bible and learning about Christianity. I just basically knew, Jesus, Son of God. I believe in him. I go to heaven if I believe in him and everything, and God exists and all that other kind of stuff. So, with that in mind, I went through most of my life just sort of being a general kind of Christian, and then once I became an atheist, that's when I actually looked into a lot more, of the religious teachings of Christianity and what the Bible actually says. And I've learned more about Christianity since leaving Christianity, and that's always, I find that that's sometimes a similar experience that people have. They don't really realize what Christianity teaches until they leave it. And
Mhm.
so I guess I'm in that category
The
of
fact
person.
that I know more about Christianity than, I don't know, 20, 30, 40% of Christians is really frightening. Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
Uh, you mentioned going in and out of like deep faith. Was that like faith, like heart faith, like you believed faith, or are you or more going into the routines of what looks like faith and out of the routines of what looks like faith?
I guess maybe it was a mixture of the two, because I would go in and out of deeply believing in God and believing that, these things are not right in my life because I'm not doing what God wants me to do or something like that. Like I'm not,
Sure.
like I'm being punished by this, or sometimes I'll get a random embarrassing thought in my head and I'll think that that's God punishing me for something.
Mhm.
And then I'll be deep into it, and then I'll just sort of slowly fall out of it, and not really worry, and then something will happen and I'll be deeply faithful again and everything. So one thing that really facilitated it, I guess, was being in the South. uh, all of my friends were religious, and some of them were like deeply religious, like
Sure.
they I think they're probably pastors now, some of them. And so with those kinds of influences, I would find myself like falling out of faith, and then
Yeah.
wanting to recommit myself to it and do better, is how I viewed it. So it's just, I guess it would be a mixture of the two.
So how would you know that, or like how would you know that you'd fallen out of faith? Were there feelings associated with that?
Well, it would be like it would come in the form of like falling asleep in church, or not wanting to go to church, or not going to church. Of course, as a teenager, I going through puberty, I looked at porn a lot. And so like
As
I
we
would
do.
yeah. So I mean, I would find myself like looking at porn and stuff, and then I would feel guilty about it, and
Yeah.
so I would like trash all of my porn, and I'd recommit myself to God and
Sure.
everything.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
it,
I'm getting a clear picture of okay what that looks like.
I'm sure you
Yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah. No, because my wife she deals with Catholic guilt a lot. Not a
Yeah.
lot. She's getting over it now, but it's definitely something that lingers. And it's one of the things that I'm the happy humanist, man. I want more happy humans on this planet, and the fact that so many religious folks that I know spend their day worried that some of their friends are going to hell, or worried that
Mhm.
they're doing something wrong, that that little voice that's in their head was God speaking to them, when brains make thoughts. It's what they do, right? All day long. It's just they're on. It's what they do. They make thoughts. Sometimes really weird thoughts just go bling into our heads, right? Not
Mhm.
God, just neurons firing, right? Um, but the fact that it causes distress to people, I'm an empathetic, I'm an actor. I don't like that, right? So I don't like that there's people walking around that are in pain for what I see as needlessly, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. My two buddies, one's a Muslim and one's a Christian. He's a Methodist, and they're convinced each one's going to hell, right? The other one's going to. I'm definitely going to hell, but they're both convinced that the other one's going to hell along with me. And it's like, guys, like we've known each other since I don't know how long, a long time now. We've known each other. Like our hearts, right? Like what's in our heart. That's not enough. Okay, all right, because the one, yeah, dude, I'm out. So on the history subject, who is Josephus? Because I had never heard of Josephus until coming across Brocephus. So tell us about Josephus, and then perhaps as well, tell us how Brocephus was born.
Yeah. So Josephus is a 1st and 2nd century Jewish historian. He was a Roman, and he wrote a number of things that, include failed messiahs in the 1st century. But there's also some contentious passages that he has where it seems to mention Jesus Christ. And the problem is, though, is that once you get outside of New Testament scholars and people that are definitely affected by the Christian worldview, you find that you find a bias, and that they're accepting of these these things about the Josephine passages that you wouldn't accept from like other historians that are used. And there's so much literature out there, scholarly literature, that doubts both mentions of Jesus Christ in Josephus. And so I feel like the stronger arguments are on the ones that say that Josephus originally didn't write anything about Jesus, just because of how dubious both of the passages are. But of course, you've got Christian apologists and New Testament scholars that will firmly assert that Josephus mentions Jesus, in his writings. And it's always tough to get past that, because there's no other way. Like, I've got a long list of things that disprove both passages, but they always write it off me like, well, every single scholar admits this is what's true, and so this has to be what's true. And it's like, that's not really a good reason. Critically looking at the evidence, and it just falls apart. So now Brocephus. So I've always kind of had this, I guess, like switch that I can turn on and off, and I go into full hick mode. And it's because of my Southern upbringing and being around like all of my very redneck hick like family members. And I usually turn it on whenever I'm wanting to sound like really stupid. And so Brocephus came about by me wanting to sort of be that kind of stupid, and be creative about demonstrating like the mentality of a redneck Christian hick. And that's just kind of how it came out. I ended up getting glasses and a hat that was all America and stuff like that.
Oh, good.
And I just had fun with it. I was making content, and I always like to have fun, whenever I do make the content that I make.
And so it just kind
of, yes, exactly. So it just kind of naturally came out. I don't even recall when, but I just know that there were so many times where I just sort of felt it, inside me, that it's like, oh, this would be better put forth by a redneck Christian hick. And so I would just, flow into that character.
Oh, it's so good. Well, and he gets the point across very well. And I'm sure Brocephus is very sad right now, and probably all fired up and ready to go to the state capitol.
Oh, well, see, that's the one thing that I just couldn't do is make him be like a Trump supporter. So, I mean, he's like a redneck Christian hick, but he's not so bad that he's a Trump supporter.
Yeah, good. But I just, yes, couldn't do it, couldn't go. My respect for you just went up another notch. So with history, Jesus, all these things, the Crestus app, which I highly recommend my friends go out and support and check it out. It's great. But I keep hearing this term Bayesian probability and Bayes' theorem. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, so the mathematics behind it can get rather complicated because you're working with probabilities and everything. But basically, we all use Bayesian, like a Bayesian analysis whenever we're trying to come to a conclusion on something. And in my most recent video, I think I've got a pretty good simple example of using Bayesian analysis to come to a conclusion. And that's with this whole, I believe in one God less than you do. Whenever talking to a religious person, essentially what you have is all of these other previous gods that don't exist, that we know don't exist, and because of that, like that's an established prior probability, right? All of these other gods that we've come up with are not true. They're not real. So the chances of your God being real or your God being the correct version of God is slim to none because of this prior probability. So most likely that's not the true God that exists if one were to exist. But see, the thing is that what makes Bayesian analysis so, I guess, beautiful, in my opinion, is that with enough evidence to suggest that this conclusion is the correct conclusion, it can overcome all of those the prior probability that suggests that it's not the correct conclusion. So for like really simple Bayesian probability and analysis, you just take what you already know to be true that has been proven, and then you use that in order to make a guess about whatever conclusion is brought forth next. And depending on what evidence you have for it, you can make a pretty good solid guess about whether or not that thing is true. And we do this all the time.
I was just going to say, this is how we get through life.
Right.
Every decision.
Right. And people, I guess maybe some people don't really understand that, especially when it comes to like looking at historical things, because, they'll be like, well, you're just, arbitrarily assigning probabilities to things. And so you can make it say literally anything that you want. But
sure.
I mean, we still do that all the time in our daily lives. Some things seem ridiculous to one person and they're not so ridiculous to another. And that influences, how they, come to their conclusions in their daily lives. And so it's very important, in as far as, trying to get to these conclusions and trying to really logically and rationally and reasonably figure things out for yourself. And so I feel like Bayesian probability and Bayesian analysis is just one of the most essential things to any person's life, whether they know they're using it or not.
It sounds like it's a way to make sure that you're not deluding yourself, that you're not being delusional in your thinking. Yeah, I love Richard Carrier's the hero spectrum or hero chart that he does.
Oddly enough, what they generally try to do with that is they'll try to refute it, like refute the rank Raglan classical hero scale. And how they try to refute it is by saying, well, Abraham Lincoln scores, such and such on this scale and everything. And the thing is that it's not really meant as as at least direct evidence against Jesus existing. But like as far as like the gospel version of Jesus goes, it definitely clues us into the fact that it was probably most likely made up. Like the entire gospel message and the gospel Jesus that is built in the Bible is not the one of history.
Okay. So I was going to ask, so when you say like the gospel Jesus, what is that in comparison to?
Well, it's in comparison to like any kind of historical Jesus that would exist. Like the like if a
Like Old
historical
Testament
Jesus.
stuff, or are we talking historical stuff?
Well, I'm talking like actual historical stuff,
Okay.
like the other things that we find in history, similar different savior figures or whatnot,
Yep.
or just historical people in general. The historical Jesus wouldn't have been magical, right? The historical Jesus would have probably been some kind of rabbi that was going around preaching and he pissed people off and then he got killed. That's generally the story that's spun by minimal historicists.
Yeah.
And so there's a really big contrast between the mythological Jesus that exists in the Bible and the one that could have existed in history if he did exist.
If he did exist, still just blows my
Yeah.
mind. Right? Like we know Muhammad. Do we know Muhammad existed?
I'm not exactly sure
Yeah.
on that one. I know that there are some people out there that claim that there's not really solid evidence that he did exist. I
Yeah.
haven't actually looked into that evidence, but
Yeah.
uh, as soon as I don't know at what point, but I know that I'm planning on looking into like the actual evidence for Muhammad, because I mean, if he did exist, then there's got to be some kind of evidence that he did exist. So I'm definitely going to look into it. I just haven't yet.
Let's talk about happiness, my friend.
Okay.
So, what is happiness?
To me, I guess happiness is, waking up every day and realizing that, you're doing what you want to do in your life and not not allowing yourself to be pressured or pushed into a certain direction, but it's because you want to be doing whatever that you're doing. And you wake up and you don't have any gripes or complaints about what's going on in your life exactly. At least nothing serious. I don't know, I know that I wake up happy every morning, with KC and my son. I usually get to talk to him every night. And so to me, happiness is just waking up and knowing that you're doing, the best that you can do and you're in the position that you're in because that's the position you've put yourself in, I guess. Not blaming other people or anything like that. Just this is your life, you're doing it, and you're happy with the decisions that you've made.
Yeah. Do you find that you're more productive, more creative, a better citizen, father, husband, when you're happy?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I can definitely tell between the two because I don't know how many people know this, but I've actually been diagnosed with clinical depression, and it's taken me a long time to really kind of get over that, and I still struggle with it sometimes. And I find myself for the most part being happier, and being a lot more productive and being a better person in general, as opposed to when I'm feeling those bouts of depression. So I can definitely tell a difference between the two.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I have anxiety. Yeah, I've had it. If you can't tell, I'm a very, energetic person. It's part of what I enjoy about acting is that it makes me inhabit a character that is not this person, this high energy, frenetic person. It makes me calm and quiet coyote, to quote the latest Disney Pixar movie, I believe. Uh, um, um, yeah, I think that's why it's so important to elevate minds and humans in general, right? Because and that's why happiness is important, right? Because when we're happy, we can be productive members of society, right? We can do things and be creative and add to this life for all of us. You know, when we're struggling, struggling emotionally, physically, mentally, with sickness, with food, with nutrition, obviously can't, it's hard to be happy. We have glimpses of happiness in those moments. But it's hard to become a productive member of society when we're, in those circumstances. Which is why I started this project, really, to try to elevate everyone I can come in contact with, the human minds that will think the thoughts that will change the world, right? Because that's who changes the world. It's you, it's me, it's all of us, right? No one's coming to help us. We're on our own, right? So we got to focus on some other things than all the flipping war weapons that we make to kill each other. Yeah, and I love that, the idea of waking up and being able to create and do what it is you want to do. In the best of all possible worlds, no one would want to wake up, I don't think, and go commit violence. So if we can help people to feel secure with housing, with food, with health, healthcare can help people to be able to focus on themselves and become better people, so that when they wake up in the morning, they can be happy knowing that they're able to create something new in this world and add something to this world using their unique perspective and be able to bring something new to the table that wasn't there before. So do you move towards happiness, like towards love? Or a lot of people tend to move away from fear, right? And they move away from sadness. So they do things that are scary. They don't do things that might make them sad, where they might face rejection. Or do you think that you move towards love and happiness, and has that changed?
Well, I would say that there have probably been points in my life where I've tried to move away from like the fear and everything. But I like to think that at least nowadays, I try to move more towards happiness and love. I don't really find myself being avoiding anything that makes me afraid. I try to seek out things that challenge me, and I feel like that brings me, closer to happiness and love and everything. Because, when I overcome that fear and I am brave or whatever, and I face it, I feel a lot more accomplished. I feel a lot better about myself. So I feel like nowadays I'm more or less moved towards love and happiness rather than away from fear.
I definitely, as I've gotten older, I've definitely made a switch. And hindsight, of course, is 2020. So I can look back now and say that, oh, okay, you did spend your like early 20s moving away from fear as opposed to moving towards things. Didn't quite know it at the time, of course, but when I'm looking back now, because I've never been afraid to stand up and use my voice on stage, where most people, want to be in the casket. They don't want to be given the eulogy. For some reason, some of us are made that we just don't mind public speaking. But like I said earlier, I'm always given the words, right? They tell me what to say. They tell me where to stand. They give me the clothes. They put on the makeup. I don't. So now that I'm doing this and trying to create original content and speaking with you in this moment, not only does it feel wonderful and it's bringing me joy and happiness, but it's very challenging for me, which I am enjoying. It was wonderful to have stage fright again and have butterflies in my stomach. I think I've realized that standing up and using my voice is something that scares me. And I am looking forward to embracing that fear and moving towards that fear and finding out what's on the other side. So what about you? What scares you?
Spiders and snakes.
Spiders. Yep.
I mean, I've I've definitely felt, a lot of fear in my life, putting myself out there, really opening myself up to, different people, especially the public. That scared me in the past. But I can never really pin down anything in particular. I do know that I haven't let like anything that scared me like stop me from doing something. And I think that's one of the better things that I could say I've always done, is that even if it scared me, I haven't let that prevent me from like living my life. Um, yeah, I would say that I feel fear and I'm scared over a lot of things, especially public speaking and stuff like that. But it's gotten a lot easier to overcome.
Yeah. So let's talk about unpleasant emotions, my friend. Because we talked a little bit about happiness and about creating and about building people up so that they can be happy. But part of life is unpleasant emotions. We all experience them. It happens sometimes for no reason at all. As I've said, our brains just make thoughts. And sometimes those thoughts actually trigger neurochemistry that makes you sad, right? Or makes you angry for no
Mhm.
reason. You think of something. So how do you manage unpleasant emotions, and perhaps how has that changed over the course of your life? Because I know I was never taught specifically, hey, how do you manage emotions? It's definitely not a class I took. Yeah, so how do we do that? How do we get through this life, trying to stay happy while dealing with these unpleasant emotions that come up?
Yeah. Well, I in the past I wouldn't have had a good answer for this, but since I was diagnosed with clinical depression, I had to go through therapy and talk to a counselor and everything, and they really kind of helped me get a grip on these emotions. And I guess for me, it's really just identifying what's causing these emotions. And then, like for anger, realizing what's actually making you angry can really help you manage, that anger. And I've found that I've been able to get over, being angry. Sometimes rather quickly. Sometimes, I still I still have that anger, either because I'm hurt by something, or I feel like something's out of my control or something like that. Um, but Essentially, the way that I manage those feelings is usually to just take a deep breath, step back from it, and try to reason my way through like why I'm angry, and actually tackle like what's frustrating me or what's making me sad. And being able to talk with somebody that I love and trust, KC, also really helps out. And so I think that more people could be better at managing these unpleasant emotions if they would just try to sit down and think of what's actually causing it, like what's the core issue that you're dealing with. And I think that more people need to do that.
I agree. Well, and just the process of the action of sitting down implies that there's now a strategy. That now I'm going to have this
Mhm.
unpleasant emotion. Great, but I can tackle it. I can get over it. There's a strategy involved here. I can sit down and whatever that is, right? It's unique. It's individual for people. I, as an actor, have multiple strategies that I use to interrupt emotional signals. Because as an actor, a lot of times people will say, "Oh, you're an actor? Oh my gosh, that must be so much fun." And I'm like, "Oh, do you read a lot of plays? Because they're not all comedies. Most of them deal with heavy, heavy shit. The day that
Yeah.
something happened, awful, right? The day that something awful happened. So when you live with those emotions, you feel them, right? You're on stage and you're feeling emotions. They're not fake emotions. At least they shouldn't be, if you're doing your job correctly. Emotions can be sticky, even if they're fake emotions from a play. They can still stick to you. So yeah, I definitely have some strategies that I will be sharing in other videos that I use as an actor to help get over some of these unpleasant emotions that that can linger. Um,
Hmm.
but again, it was that I was never taught emotional intelligence. I was never taught how an emotion forms in my body, what it does, how it changes my breath, my posture, my facial expression. Like never taught any of these things that really would have made me a more emotionally mature and a more emotionally rational, intelligent human being for a lot of my life. Specifically, younger Joshua, who was like, "Yeah, let's do it!" right off the side of the mountain. So I had said earlier that I think our superpower is to take the subjective and make it objective, that we can create things wholly original that are wholly our own. And that is because of our unique perspective, our unique brain that no one else has, that interprets signals in the way that no one else on earth can do. And then I can make that known. So what is your superpower, John? What do you create? And more specifically, what does the world need that you create?
Well, I guess I feel like creating a sense of community and inspiring people to, stand up and use their voice. When I was growing up, I really didn't feel accepted, by a lot of people, and I felt alone a lot of the times. And so I've really focused on trying to make sure that people don't feel so alone. And I feel like I've done that, a good portion of my life. Because I remember as a kid, I would always gravitate to people that seemed to be sort of um, segregated, I guess, from the class or from my friends or something like that. I never really wanted anybody to feel like they didn't belong.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I've really tried to do for my channel and all of my efforts there, is try to build this sense of community, try to let people know that they're not alone in thinking, some of the things that all atheists think about religion and God and stuff. And so that's I would say that would be my superpower, if you will.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah. So what does it mean to be a human nowadays in 2021? I know we made it just a few days into January before everything. But, you're a parent, I'm a parent. I'm 6 years old, and I worry about the world. And I know that every parent in history has worried about the world, and they're worried about those telephone lines that were going to cause the cancer, right? And they're worried about the automobiles, and right. So I know that. But nonetheless, I still worry.
Well, I don't know. The first thing that comes to mind with that question is just quarantined. Is kind of what it means to be human nowadays. I think, one thing that I think of is just fallible. That's one thing that I've always had the biggest trouble getting over, and that's being wrong on occasion and being fallible, because nobody ever likes to be wrong, but that's one of the biggest hurdles that I find a lot of people have to cross whenever they're starting like channels and being vocal about their opinions and their thoughts and their ideas is, it's like, well, what if I'm wrong about this? Sure. And we're all human. We're all fallible. We can all be wrong. And it's okay to be wrong, because when you're wrong and you figure out why you're wrong, then, you grow as a person. And I feel like that's what it means to be human, is realizing that we're all fallible and not demanding perfection of yourself.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. Yeah, I think that even though we're all so connected, it's amazing how alone people still are. Even though everything is right there at their fingertips, we still have, loneliness, pervasive suicide, pervasive mental health issues. And I worry about the tribalism. I worry about the division between even well-intentioned people on both sides, on both the left and the right, dividing further and further into divisions, of what actually does, defining me as an individual, that I am this one little thing, but like to the exclusion of everybody else. Like, of course you're one individual and you're totally unique and wonderful in your uniqueness, but there's like this exclusionary tribal thing that I see happening on both sides. And it's that dug in, that fallibility, that I am infallible and I will never change. Like,
Yeah, it does seem like a lot of people, especially in the current political, socio-political climate that we got going on right now, a lot of people feel like they're infallible when it comes to their opinions about things. And I think that if more people realize that they can be wrong and that they should critically look at their positions instead of just automatically assuming they're right, I think that we could find a lot more in common between all of us.
Sure.
But I don't think that's going to happen for a while, at least.
No. What do you think it would take for that to happen?
I mean,
Other than
I
an
kind
alien arrival.
yeah. Well, I kind of feel like a lot of people have this brain fog that's kind of going on as far as politics goes, and our interpersonal, communication skills, I guess. And so I think that time is just going to be the ultimate healer. I think that, over time, people are going to come out of this fog, hopefully. But I mean, who knows? It could just further, get worse and worse and worse, like it has been for the past few years. But I think that really the only thing that can solve it would just be time. Allowing people to go a certain amount of time without things working out for them,
Yeah.
and realizing that the world's not going to end and the Illuminati's not going to take over. I ultimately time, I think, is what will heal it.
Time heals all wounds, right? And as I am fond of saying, someday this will all be a long time ago. I don't know. Why are we here, John? What do you think? Meaning of life?
Well, I mean, I think that we all have different meanings, for our lives. So we craft our own meaning to life, and I don't think that any of us have one specific meaning. I mean, if you were to look at it very unemotionally, and as objectively as you can be, I guess the meaning of life would be to survive and propagate life, right?
Sure.
And so, but I feel like it goes a bit deeper than that when you start talking about like the human condition, because we all develop our own meanings in our life, and we can have multiple meanings. I know me, I've always wanted to be a dad, and so my son, he's 10, he's going to be turning 11 this month.
Yay.
And I feel like trying to be the best father that I can be to him, and giving him a better life than I had. I feel like that's one meaning that I've attributed to my life. Being a positive force in somebody's life, I feel like, is another meaning that I've kind of created for myself. And so those would be the meanings for my life, like some of them. And I think that we all have our own meanings to life. Looking at it not from an unemotional, objective kind of viewpoint, but more of a humanistic, I guess, viewpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's like such a broad question, the meaning of life. Why are we here? Why are we here, friends? I think I'm here for you. Much like an actor standing on stage alone is not an actor. I need an audience, and I think that's what we're here for. Not that there's a purpose that we're here for, because there's not that the creator gave us a reason to be here. But see, now I'm doing it too. I'm just going Southern. Every time I slip in, I'm like, no, creator. But yeah, right. I mean, the meaning is what you make it. This life is what you make it. But I think if we look at the biological organism that is us, and then we get back to happiness and productivity, okay, then perhaps the meaning should be to try to maximize those things, and minimize those other things. Great. So then how do we do that? There's meaning there, trying to maximize, happiness in this world, being there for each other. Because we know that the planet is geologically active and disasters are going to happen. And for some reason, we always come together when there's a disaster. Why just a disaster? Why can't we just come together, because why do buildings have to fall for us suddenly to forget that, oh yeah, God is not here right now and it's just us, and we got to get the survivors out of this building because no one's coming to help. Suddenly we all get along in those moments. So that's my rant on the meaning of life. So one of the things I struggle with in this life is death, right? It's the fact that we have to say goodbye. And it's not that I'm scared of death. It's not, of course, I want the process to be as painless as possible. not sudden that I don't, that I can say goodbye to my family members and things. So it's not that, but it's the thought that, man, someday I got to go and they're going to be alone now. And that sucks because now they're going to be in pain. Or they're going to leave before I do, in which case now I'm going to be in pain. And that sucks. As a theater artist, this is what I explore on stage: love and relationship and empathy and the pain that is caused from relationships. So how do we reconcile that? How do we even find happiness in this world when we know that it's all temporary? I mean, I can go to the extreme and say the heat death of the universe. How do you find, what does anything mean? It's all going to be heat death. As I roll my eyes to that, because the meaning is here. It's right now. It's present. But how do we reconcile that? How do we move forward in this life knowing that either they're going to have to say goodbye to me or I'm going to have to say goodbye to them?
Well, it's interesting that you asked this because it's been recent that my son has actually had these sort of existential crises. He's thought about what it means to die, what happens after we die, and it gets him really sad. And the way that I've kind of come to get around all of that is the fact that this is the only life that we get, and so we have to make the most of it. And as long as you're making the most out of your life and you're living your life to the fullest, and being happy and doing things you want to do, I think that that's really all that you can do. And when it comes to, either somebody else passing away or you yourself passing away, while there's not an afterlife necessarily, I feel like you live on in the hearts of others, and your influence on other people will live on. Like a piece of yourself can live on in the minds of those individuals of lives that you've touched. And so keeping that in mind, that's one of the things that really drives me to try to be a positive force in somebody's life. It's the only way that I'm going to be able to outlive my life and have some kind of afterlife. And that's people remembering me. Not everybody that watches one of my YouTube videos, obviously, but like some of the more closer relationships that I have with people, having a positive effect in their life and being somebody that they can count on and everything like that. I feel like that's the best way that we can really, I guess try to circumvent the very short time that we have in this life.
Thank you for sharing that. Yep. I think my last question: how do we help more people to find their happy in this world, my friend?
Well, I know a lot of people, at least in my own personal experience, they don't. It's like they're afraid to be happy. I know that could definitely describe me at some points in my life, being afraid to, like, because I don't know if it comes from religion or what, or just the upbringing that people have been brought up with, but it's like if you're happy, then that's a bad thing. And so it kind of seems like you do things to make yourself not happy, because once you are happy, then it seems wrong almost. And we've been taught that you're not supposed to be happy, or you're supposed to do things that don't make you happy. And so I know that once I realized what did and did not make me happy, I was able to make changes in my life and become okay with being happy. And I think that that's one of the bigger changes from me as a religious person to me now is I'm not afraid to be happy. Right. I'm not afraid to do things that makes me happy. And I think that if more people spent less time avoiding being happy, then they would have a much fuller life. And I can definitely see people pushing back against that, being like, well, no, we all want to be happy. But just from my own personal experience, I know in the past, I've done things not that have not made me happy, but I've still done them. And so I just every day it's another chance to make better decisions that lead to a happier outcome. And so I kind of just take it sort of one day at a time, trying to make better decisions for myself. And I think more people should do that.
Yep. Yeah. And I just keep thinking of analogies to acting, because I'm an actor, but it's just that living in the moment, objectives, obstacles, and tactics. We have things we want. There's things in the way. We got to go get them. Sometimes the process of going to get them, the tactic, is not enjoyable. Weightlifting, right? Oh God, I hate it. I hate working out. I hate lifting heavy things repeatedly. Like I don't find joy in it. And that's why I don't do it. I need to do it. I'm getting old. All of my joints are starting to hurt. So I have to start
I know the
doing
feeling.
but like, I got to figure out a way to enjoy that process. That's one of my goals for 2021. Figure out how to enjoy that process, because right now I don't want to do it. So I'll figure it out, and I'll let you know what happens. But that process of being in the moment, knowing, what it is you want, taking steps to achieve that goal, not just knowing what you want, but taking steps and knowing that it might be a long haul. Take little tiny steps, and that incremental, not incremental happiness, but that incremental presence of being, here with other folks in this world, creating a shared reality with other people. We're going to have unpleasant emotions. They're going to have bad days. Perhaps I attribute to them, that they're just having a bad day, and that they're not actually an asshole. Yeah.
One can hope, right?
One can hope. Awesome. Hey, John, I that's all I got for you, man. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here, spending some time with me today. In an ideal world, I would have flown down to Alabama and we could have shared some air. Yes.
Trust me, I don't wish that anybody would come to Alabama, but that would definitely be in the perfect world scenario. But I appreciate you having me on and talking with me a little bit about all these various different things. So I appreciate it, man. I really do.
Thanks, man.